Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Columbus Day weekend. I wonder if Columbus knew what would happen when he landed here. Probably not. All right, let's just take a moment to settle in and pray together. Nice to see all of you. Nice to see some of you finally back. All right. So as we take a moment and take a nice big deep breath, we give thanks for the joy and the enthusiasm in our sanctuary filled with that Christ consciousness. And we come here in unity in New Thought churches to really remind one another of who we are, that we are the divine essence, part of that God force on the planet. And if change is going to come about, then it is up to a few people who are passionate and who take action. And so we know that we are the feet, we are the hands, we are the eyes, the ears on the planet and the hearts to do whatever we are passionate about. We hold in our prayer, as we've been doing all week, I know all of you have, for all the victims in Las Vegas this week and all their families, all their friends, the town itself, all the healthcare workers, all the security and police force. We send them light and love. And we hold all the children in the world in our prayers. We see them loved and lovable and practicing love and able to fulfill all their desires and achieve true God realization. And we pray every day for our world leaders. We pray that they are tuned in to their God consciousness, to their higher self. And that as they get those intuitive reminders, they make policy and have discussions based on one global family, one united global community. And for the teachings of Jesus the Christ, we say, glory to God. Amen. And let us affirm, God as divine order is moving in and through our world today. Peace, love, and joy abound.
Yes.
In loving community, we nurture and inspire spiritual growth by modeling and teaching universal spiritual principles and our values. Welcoming, diverse, prayerful, transformational, abundant, joyful, empowering. Our statement of being. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am an individualized expression of God. I am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance.
Good morning, everyone. That's it. Let there be less of me. Let there be more of me. Less of the human, more of the divine. Less that belongs to me. All that is thine, more of God's nature, less that is mine. Order and harmony, now in place. Where there is harmony, discord will cease. Where there is harmony, there will be peace. Not personality, individuality, more of the Christ self shining through me. Teach me humility. Let me your servant
Good morning. My name is Norm Bogert, licensed Unity teacher here. We welcome you to Unity Spiritual Center. And we would like to thank you for joining us today. Unity Spiritual Center is where we know, love, and worship God and serve God through our prayers, our meditation, our Sunday celebrations, our classes, and our community. We appreciate the talents of our music team. If you've rested long enough, please stand and we'll sing our joy song. If this is the first time you have worshiped with us together, we're glad that you're here. We appreciate it if you would wear a name badge. We all try to wear a name badge, so it makes it easier when we greet each other in a few minutes. If you would like a guest packet, and it looks something like this, you can, if you haven't already received one, at our welcoming desk just outside the doors here, you can pick one up, and the staff there will be glad to answer any questions that you have about Unity or about how we do things here. I hope that you'll stop by and take advantage of that. You're never alone on the road to life. You're not alone here. There will be more time to greet each other after the service in our community room. We always have a little bit of food there that you can partake in, and coffee and good conversation. And that's right through these doors here, go across the lobby and that into our community room. It's time for the community greeting. We like to call this Vitamin H because we're a hugging community. And if you prefer not to be hugged, simply extend your hand and we'll give you a welcoming handshake. After just a couple of minutes, you will hear a little musical ditty from the piano maestro over there. And if that doesn't get your attention, I'll be ringing a bell. And then we hope that you will look and get back into your seats so we can continue the program. It's now time to get up and say hello to each other. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you our treasurer, John Booth, who will give you a financial update, followed by the reading of the daily word and the spiritual power of the month, which will be done by Carol Quinn.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to give you an update on the Dole Fund. We missed last month. We were all home picking up after the storm. And so if you'll notice, we've done some work here, done quite a bit of work in clearing the grounds, and so the storm was really a good thing. And so I'd like to talk about our contributions to the Dome Fund for 2017. 10. From January through September, you have donated through, we'll talk about how you've donated, but you have donated $59,541 to the end of September. And then in September, a total of $3,739 was collected. And of course, we missed one Sunday in September, so that's not unusual, and I know that it'll be made up. But I applaud this congregation as being, I think, the most generous congregation that I've ever been associated with. So congratulations. Now, I did want to mention where the money comes from. It does come from commitments, it comes from fundraisers, and it comes from just cash donations that you put in the envelopes. Now, Joanie Spires, I've had questions about how much do I have left on my commitment and that sort of thing, and I really don't have that data, so I referred those inquiries to Joanie Spires. So if you have a question, you can ask her, because the first wave of commitments are up at the end of the year. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning. Would all chaplains in service please rise? If you would like a prayer with one of the prayer chaplains, please come to the front of the room at the end of the service. We have 2 rooms on the side for more private prayer if you choose that. We are honored to be of service to you. Today's daily word is very appropriate. It is healing. It comes from Psalm 30, verse 2. O Lord, my God, you have healed me. There is a universal flow of wholeness, an inexhaustible and irrevocable stream of life in which I live, move, and have my being. As I close my eyes and relax into the remembrance of this truth, I feel the sweet ecstasy of bathing in divine love. The indwelling presence of God is my true identity. As waves of well-being gently wash over me, they draw out any anxiety, sadness, fear, and all beliefs in lack and limitation that have been cluttering my perception. My mind and heart are restored to the awareness of divine life. Love heals. Love frees me from any suffering that I might have been experiencing in mind, body, or spirit. Love restores me to a deep faith in God's infinite presence, power, and peace. Resting in love's curative, life-giving waters, I am refreshed and revitalized. I am healed. Would you all join me in the affirmation? I relax into the infinite stream of divine life, and I am healed. Thank you. Now, the spiritual power of the month is order. The corresponding color is olive green. The center of order is located at the navel. Order is the ability to organize, balance, sequence, and adjust. Order is represented by Mary of Alphaeus and the disciple James, son of Alphaeus. Can you please join me in saying the affirmation? I declare divine order in my thoughts, words, and actions to create a life of significance. And now, Reverend Marge could come up and bless the prayer box. Divine Spirit, As we gather today, we bless those whose names are in this box and all who have requested prayers. Requested prayers for the world, order, peace, in all things that may seem out of balance. We see those in divine order, and we affirm that the power of love is present in all, as waves of well-being do bring us love, order, and peace. May it be so. We thank you. Amen.
And now as we take a few deep belly breaths and begin to relax and focus and just let the thoughts pass through. Today the daily word was healing. So let us join collectively in a wave of healing consciousness of comfort and really send that over the mountains, over to Las Vegas. Let us take some time in the quiet as we do that. Cool breeze on our cheek, or really feel the chair supporting us. And we give thanks for that quiet, that stillness, that still small voice that is always just a breath away. Amen.
Holy when I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart will bleed, then I am still waiting in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on the stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
I think we just saw the best we ever saw Tony right here. Of course, we know the maestro is pushing him, which is great. All right, some thank yous for people who worked in this ministry this week: Barbara Richards and Stephen Paula Camp, Joni Spires, John Booth and Gus Cott got our fountain back up, Jim Hall, who checked the miraculous Michael, who cleared our land. He was amazing to watch. And we are now in compliance with the FEMA scheduled pickup, most importantly. And then if you helped last Sunday make it easier for Michael and cleared brush, will you please stand so we can thank you? Because there was a good 15, 20 other seconds. All right, and the Living Originally books are in. It's right here. I don't want to touch it because it fell a few times last week. And Reese Dolan, where are you? Are you here today? She has said yes to being our volunteer coordinator. Will you stand so everybody She is giving up the kitchen, and you know what that means. We're looking for leaders out there in hospitality. And thank you for helping us recycle the old daily words and taking them to medical offices. And Dennis, I know that that pile on the activities table is shrinking, so that's a good thing. Two short jokes. There's an old man sprawled across 3 entire seats in the movie. So the usher comes up and says, "Sir, you can only have 1 seat." He doesn't move. Comes up again. I said, "If you don't move, I'm going to have to get my manager." He gets the manager. The manager says, "Sir, you can only have 1 seat and you have 3. We're going to have to call the police if you don't move." Police come. They say to the man, "What's your name?" He says, "Fred." Says, "Where are you from?" And a real groan comes out and he says, from the balcony. All right, and this is from one of my Minnesota friends. They like making fun of themselves because they have a good sense of humor. So there's a smooth-talking Norski in the Minnesota National Guard, a natural born salesman. So he gets called to active duty, and they're assigning him to the induction center because he's a good talker. They assign him the duty of advising new recruits about government benefits, especially the GI life insurance to which they're entitled. So the officer in charge soon notices that Oli is getting 99% sign-up rate. So he's thinking, wow, that's incredible. I better go sit in and see how he's doing this. He said, this is remarkable because it costs these low-income recruits $30 a month for the higher coverage, compared to what the government was already providing at no charge. So he's sitting in and he's listening to Oli, and Oli's got a new group of inductees, and he says, if you have the normal GI insurance and you go to Afghanistan and you get killed, the government pays your beneficiary $20,000. If you take out the supplemental insurance, which costs you only $30, the government got to pay your beneficiary $200,000. Now, Oli concluded, which bunch you think they gonna send to Afghanistan first? It takes all kinds, doesn't it? So this has been a tumultuous week for sure. You know, after my prayer meditation, it's usually about 5:15, 5:30, I get up, and of course, the phone's there, and I see at that time 20 people have been killed. And of course, we're looking at divine order this month. And how do you see order in that? So, I don't know how many of you know about these 26,000-year cycles, but every 26,000 years, all of the planets circle the sun. And of course, this goes on and on and on. And when it circles the sun, then we're in complete alignment. Our Earth is in complete alignment with the sun. And everybody, all of the civilizations have known this. So this is from I believe the Egyptians. This is the Greeks who broke this great cycle into ages called the Iron, the Bronze, the Silver, the Golden Ages. And all the tribes, the ancient tribes knew this. The Hopis, the Mayan, the Lakotas, the Inca tribes. And these cycles are, as you see, descending and ascending. And then the Hindus further break it down. And they call these cycles of global consciousness. So up here we are awake, and down here we are asleep. And I want to show you the present. So this is the present, which we're just kind of moving out of the pits. And I was shown this a long time ago by some friends. They were in their 90s. They showed me these different books a couple decades ago. And so I think it helps to keep perspective on global consciousness when we know that these cycles are a natural part of what's taking place. Does it help? A little bit. So modern astrologers calculate it as a cycle that involves a gradual change in the orientation of the Earth's axis and the rotation. And the modern astrologists call this the precession of the equinoxes, in case you want to look it up. So it's a to and fro, ebb and flow, up and down swing to everyday life. It's like our days, the 24-hour day, the 365-year cycle. So the Earth continues to spin on its place, and each cycle involves the process of falling asleep and awakening. And from Ecclesiastes 1:9, what has been will be again, what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. So the law of rhythm states that everything flows in and out. Everything has tides, everything rises and falls, the pendulum swings back and forth and everything. And so we go through these transitions. And we have just completed, if you remember 12-12-12, you know, that was a big deal for people with spiritual consciousness and the astrologers. We completed the cycle then, and we also completed a 16 billion year cycle of evolution. So that is when the Mayan calendar ended. And when you say, you know, 12-12-12, well, it's 17, what's the deal, right? But these cycles are 26,000 years, so it's a little bit, we got to give them some play in there, because it's not 1 or 2 years. It's kind of like when you're looking at the ocean and, you know, you can see the tide come in or you can see the tide go out, but then there's a point where the tide is changing where it looks like nothing's happening. And this is kind of maybe where we are now. Because we're just in that little 5-year period. To everything there's a season and a time, to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to tear down, and a time to build. And Jose Arguelles, he says the global mobilization of social forces to achieve demilitarization and deindustrialization will finally, despite delays due to the resistance of reactionary elements, achieve its goal towards the end of the cycle in 2012. Again, we're getting to be on target. Our planet thus enters into a next evolutionary phase, securing itself a place as a new member of the galactic community. And yeah, we have to go from there. So I couldn't find this in a book, and it didn't exactly come out. So I gave it to Tana, but she didn't like my pencil. But what it's supposed to show is that every time we go through one of those cycles, we end up a little higher, in a little higher consciousness than the last 26,000 cycle. So we are making progress as a global community. And I think that's important to realize as we move through these periods and witness what we're witnessing. You know, you might, if you're not aware of this, you might think, good grief, you know, it looks really bad out there, and I'm going to be really worried about my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. Anybody worried about that? The way things are going? Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, you know, how do we do life when one of these events happens? Well, I had already committed to, last week, to taking part in the American Peace Experiment, which was to hold peace over the northeastern section of St. Louis, Missouri for 10 minutes every day at noontime. And then, you know, I'm doing the Brummett book, and so I'm practicing and was practicing this last week, radical self-awareness. So I look at my phone at 5:15 last Monday, and I thought, well, I am not tuning into the media. Why? Why would I? I mean, I know what it's going to be the whole week, right? I mean, I know what they're going to be doing. And I know they're going to dribble a little this, a little that every day just to get everybody hooked on what's next and what's happening. Now, I decided I'm going to hold those people in prayer. Of course, I had a heavy heart. And, you know, when you first hear that, I don't know how you react, but it's just devastating. I mean, your stomach turns and you're thinking, really? Again? Really? This again? So why I decided to do that is, you know, we never can help the solution if we stay at the level of the consciousness in which it was created. Can we? No. So Brummett, in his chapter on radical self-awareness, he uses Fillmore's diagram. And this is a good diagram. Now, here's how I think about it. I think that, you know, a couple decades ago, we maybe in our conscious minds were more tuned in, maybe more grounded, maybe had less, not maybe, had less external stimuli, and we're more aware of the superconscious mind giving us ideas. And so from our conscious mind and receiving those superconscious ideas and impulses from divine mind, then that became our subconscious mind. Now it's a little different. Now we have these extremely slick, sophisticated, very targeted marketers that want to have us every second doing what they want to do. So now we are more oriented to the external world rather than into our own internal world. And now these ideas that we have are more external that come in than from the superconscious mind. And then, it depends on our lens of perception, doesn't it, as to what we think we perceive and the story we make up. And then that story we make up becomes our subconscious minds. And everybody knows, who's been in Unity, that we run our lives 95% of the time through our subconscious minds. So here we are, we're 2017, and we're true students, and we're really committed to creating and forming a different world, one that is sustainable, one that recognizes oneness, and one global community. So one of the ways to do that is to practice radical self-awareness, see where our minds are, and see if that's where we want our mind, and is that the mind and the idea in our mind that is creating a peace-giving, one sustainable global community. So Bernard writes that as children, we were all taught to fill our needs externally, and he says that's doomed to fail. He says, first, the external world is incapable of filling an internal need. Our conscious minds can only be filled with the awareness of the superconscious. That is what we strive for, that's why we're here. Secondly, he says this subconscious mind projects its own unmet needs onto the external world. The deficiency we feel inside then is projected onto the external world. So that means anything that we're not getting from the external world, we then project it onto the external world and say, why aren't you giving it to me, whoever it is, spouse, government, minister, club, friend, you name it, why aren't you giving it to me? And he says, as we practice this radical self-awareness, he says 3 things will happen. He says, first, we'll cease to project our subconscious deficiencies, desires, and conflicts onto the external world. We'll begin to see the external world more clearly as it really is. How many think that would be beneficial? Yeah, exactly. And secondly, he says, we'll become more aware of the previously ignored contents of our subconscious mind, which has formally projected onto the world. And he says this is the most difficult part because we're used to this, aren't we? And, we don't want to upset ourselves. And he says, this is a painful part, he says, because this is the stuff that we'll be running from. But he says, if we face it, it's a pain that heals, and it's temporary, as opposed to the pain of resistance and not looking at it, and that is dull and persistent. And I know many of you, as I say this and look out there, you have already dealt with some of the stuff in your subconscious mind and have conquered. And he says the third thing he promises is, he says, we'll more directly be aware of the presence of the superconscious mind as we turn toward it. And that's the key. And that was definitely true for me this week as I practiced radical self-awareness. It's not easy. We'll see the ultimate source of all we desire is from within us. We'll begin to experience periods of deep peace and satisfaction. We'll see true happiness is not dependent on our circumstances or what is happening out there. Did anybody take the peace experiment and have something that they would like to share? Okay, I suggested it last week. I didn't know if anybody was going to do it. So Grummett in Living Originally recommends starting the practice of radical self-awareness in the first hour of the morning, because he says it's a quiet time. We usually do our routine and maybe not talk so much. And he says, so as you go through your personal hygiene moves, try to just stay focused on radical self-awareness and what your thoughts are that are moving through at the time. And then this is good. Forget the past. The vanished lives of all men and women are dark with many shames. Human conduct is ever unreliable until anchored in the divine. Everything in the future will improve if you're making a spiritual effort now. And that's because what we're spending on time now is who we are in the future. Isn't that correct? Yeah. And so one of the reasons we do these books like Eye of the Storm and Living Originally is Unity is well aware that psychological and spiritual health are intertwined. And we cannot have a spiritually healthy group unless we have a psychologically healthy group. So that's one of the reasons we do this. And then in closing, there's a message here from somebody new. I don't know her, Nikolai Christie, and she says this: never will so much have been achieved by so few for so many during this time period. And this is a person who Barbara Marx Hubbard backs. And as you know, Barbara Marx Hubbard has been at the work of conscious evolution for decades. So these are some things to think about. So it appears that this is a crucial time, and to create and to be aware of what we're creating with our mind's eye. We want to create a world that not only do we want to live in, but we want to leave a better world for anybody that lives after us. That is all for today. So, is there anybody here for the very first time? Yeah, John, great. Ellen, great. We would like to give you a blessing. So all of you are sitting in that row, so that makes it easy. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you. And you can always tell the people from the previous Unity churches because they're like, all right, let me have it. All right, and now is the time where we get to give our tithes, our love offerings, our blessings. And so as we have those, and hold those in our hands, let us say our affirmation. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful. thanks to the givers of these gifts, especially the tithers who really know the law of circulation, know that the ebb and the flow, the in and the out is all the same. And so we give thanks for the givers of these gifts. And we have a big job all the time as true students. And we see these gifts and our consciousness and our minds going forth this week being radically aware. And we see these monies, checks and offerings, we see them multiplied many times over and really going out and making a radical difference in the world to create a more peace-filled, kind, sustainable world for one humanity. And for this we give thanks in the name and in the nature of Jesus the Christ. Amen. All right, and now we're going to get in our peace circle with maybe a line down the middle. And if you don't know the peace song, you want to position yourself so you can see the screen.